Formula One doesn't feel like Formula One anymore, in the sense that despite the sport never being faster, safer, or richer than it is today, it somehow feels like the central focus of F1 isn't actually motor racing anymore. What do I mean by this? Gone are the days of screaming V10s, unfiltered rivalries, and authentic racecraft. Instead of that, F1 has slowly morphed into a PR-trained soap opera that has a reality show made about it once a year. Now, before you cook up some essay in the comments, hear me out. I'm well aware that I, for one, cannot talk about nostalgia, as I wasn't even alive to witness the Schumacher dominance era. On top of this, believe it or not, I'm also not a moron. I completely acknowledge that there are certain aspects of F1 that should not be revived. For example, flooring a literal death trap at 250 kilometers per hour without seatbelts or a proper helmet, matched with the possibility to end up in the Monaco harbour, doesn't exactly make the race a more entertaining watch. Point being, there's nothing wrong with making F1 safer. The problem is, we made it predictable. And no, this won't just be some rant about how a particular team or driver's dominance era makes F1 less exciting, because whether you like it or not, that occurs in every sport. Take your pick: Roger Federer, Michael Schumacher, Mike Tyson, Nicholas Latifi, Cristiano Ronaldo. These guys winning didn't ruin their respective sport. What I'm getting at here is that aside from the competitive aspect of F1, there are several other components that are of equal importance that all impact the watchability of Sunday's race. Therefore, I've split the video into segments on the current grid, rules, and safety areas, as they all need some major upgrade overhauls. Full disclaimer, this isn't going to be me rambling about some diabolical takes on why F1 is mid. Quite the opposite. In fact, I'd argue that, like myself, all of you watching love the sport irrespective of its many flaws, which is why my goal is to use examples from the past to not only show that F1 could improve, but to also provide a legitimate solution to the problems I raise. But that's all I got for the intro today. Sorry for dragging it out longer than usual. No self-promotions today. Let's get right into why F1 needs fire. Rightio, so the first topic I'll cover today is the current state of the grid. Now, by no means am I saying that the root problem here is the drivers themselves, and this applies to all of them, whether they fall into the GOAT category or the mid category. Every single one of these guys are decent people, and I'm not going to pull any of them apart. Aww. The main point here follows the age-old quote of "don't hate the players, hate the game," in the sense that the driver's behavior isn't actually an accurate representation of them exercising their free will. What I'm getting at here is that if it were not for all the PR training of you can say this and you can't say that, I'm certain that some drivers would have a whole new level of depth to their personalities. Like, you cannot tell me that guys like Isaac Hadjar or Yuki Tsunoda wouldn't triple their fan bases overnight were it not for all of the behavioral norms in modern F1. I guess what I'm trying to say is that F1 fans don't want to see the equivalent of a soulless media-trained LinkedIn final boss in interviews, but rather we want to see the true personalities of all the drivers.
No, these guys are fucking retarded.
Granted, this doesn't apply to the whole grid. Guys like Max make it very clear at times that they don't give a solitary shit about their PR duties.
No comments.
However, at the end of the day, behavior like that isn't tolerated anymore. A prime example of this would be at the Singapore Grand Prix last year. Max was frustrated with his car, and after thoroughly scanning the Urban Dictionary, he described the situation in a single word that not even Shakespeare could have matched.
As soon as I went into qualifying, I knew the car was fucked.
Let's watch our language going forward.
You will swear anyway. Like, what are we? 5-year-olds? 6-year-olds?
Anyhow, this little incident resulted in Max getting a slap on the wrist from the FIA and being forced to attend community service in Rwanda after the prize ceremony in 2024. So say what you want, but I mean, come on, community service? Max is cooking here though. We're not 5-year-olds, and if language like that is really gonna rattle your cage, may I suggest switching channels to the F1 Kids stream? Don't worry, the dinosaur-shaped nuggets will be out of the oven soon, and you'll get one glass of fizzy drink. Grow up, people. If I also saw my F1 team crumbling from within, I'd also be dropping frequent F-bombs. Back to my point though, the perfect comparison to make here would be that of Nigel Mansell, as I'd argue that Max is the closest we've got to Nigel on the 2025 grid. I say this because both of these drivers are notorious for their aggressive driving style. Plus, many people like Adrian Newey have made this exact same comparison. What I'm getting at here is that the type of F1 fan to root for Max or Nigel is the type that doesn't just enjoy their elbows out driving approach, but also their hot-headed like personalities that complement this driving style. Therefore, when drivers like this are told that the type of behavior isn't acceptable anymore, it doesn't just polarize F1 fans, but it also takes out the element of what the actual hell will he do this time. For example, at the Spanish Grand Prix in 1992, Nigel Mansell won his 4th consecutive race of the season and absolutely smoked the rest of the the grid in horrendous wet conditions. Anyway, the 1992 equivalent of a keyboard warrior disguised as an F1 journalist made the claim that Nigel's win wasn't deserved and that his car had an unfair suspension advantage. In a similar fashion to Verstappen, Nigel was not afraid to let his voice be heard. He said, and I quote, "Is he on the same planet or not? Are you serious, my friend? If you are, you should seek a psychiatrist. You're stupid." Now, I want you to imagine what would happen if Max or any other driver on the current grid said that to a reporter today. You're starting to see the problem, right? Call me crazy, but shouldn't silly accusations be met with silly responses? Once again, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that F1 drivers should say whatever BS they want when they're speaking to some 70 million people on the live international feed.
I'm so sad right now. Look at my nephew.
Why did you ask for a princess dress for Christmas? Boys don't wear princess dresses!
It's unfortunate.
But what I am saying is that trying to cancel Isaac Hadjar for what he liked on Instagram Reels is beyond stupid. Like, the guys aren't running for local office, their job is to simply drive fast cars. Moving along though, another component of this section is that of how F1 drivers of this generation do not resemble the ones from the past, whether you're assessing the rivalries,
He's behaving like a coward.
the social media shitstorms,
Oh no, cause the scene.
or something as frivolous as their taste in fashion. Personally, I don't think this is even worth discussing, as these elements of the grid appear to me as more of a preference than a problem. As a proud member of Gen Z, I gotta say, I don't care how the F1 drivers dress, what game they want to stream on Twitch next winter break, blah blah blah. The world is different now, and whilst I can't say that older generations of F1 fans will all share this opinion,
Fuck you, kid.
I'm pretty confident they'd agree with me when I say that the, how should I phrase it? The mandated political correctness of the drivers is the root problem here. Up next, I'm now going to go over how in the modern era of F1, many people feel like the FIA's rulebook determines the order of the championships, opposed to who actually crosses the finish line first. Oh, and before we dive into it, I'm going into this with a non-biased approach, meaning that this is a 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix free zone. I am not taking sides. Right, so I'd argue the biggest problem in the rules department is that of the over-regulation on just about everything, in the sense that it has killed the innovative spirit that F1 was basically built upon. What I'm cooking up here is that if a team has a budget of, let's say, I don't know, 100 million euros, they should be able to use those funds in any way they seem fit to build the best possible race car, rather than being forced to meet 50,000 different tedious requirements and pray they stumble across some bullshit ass loophole in the rules to exploit a gain of 7 horsepower. I mean, seeing as the teams hire some of the most talented engineers on earth, I'd expect to see a grid consisting of virtually anything from an Oppressor Mark II to a tow truck with a rocket engine on the back, not some variations of the same car. That's like telling your cousin at some family dinner that, oh yeah, you can join my Minecraft world, but only use these blocks built in this area only, otherwise I'll kick you. Obviously I'm not saying they should just add wheels to a rocket ship and call it a day.
Pete, stop.
But by no means should teams be scared to innovate due to the fear of being nerfed or banned. As far as I can remember, the last revolutionary idea was when Mercedes introduced DAS to their cars in 2020, which was immediately banned the following season. The FIA should be incentivizing innovation, not penalizing it. Just look back in the 20th century.
I'm kind of retarded.
We were fortunate enough to witness fan cars, six-wheeled cars, teapot cars, just to mention a few. And sure, whilst all of these may not have been generational discoveries, it brought excitement to the race weekend. Just look how different each team's F1 car looked 50 years ago back in 1975. Nowadays, unless you've got elite ball knowledge, I guarantee most of you could not distinguish between the 10 teams' F1 cars if they were all painted the same color. Building on this, completely abolishing certain regulations may not be the most practical idea. Okay, fine, but what about adjusting the regulations to give the people what they want? Take the size of the cars, for example. Just look at this picture on screen now. Notice how massive the cars have become? They're the size of the bloody Mystery Machine. Yeah, like no shit they struggle to overtake on some circuits. Think about how eventful races were this year in Imola, Monaco, Japan. Would it blow your mind to know that actual tracks are not the problem, but rather the cars that race around them? Don't hate the players, hate the game. The only other element of the FIA's rules that I think need major reviews is that of the driver conduct ones, which is more or less encompassing swearing. However, I'll save you from another rant about why F1 doesn't need to be promoted as a family-friendly Netflix series, as I honestly believe that even the slightest gain in creative freedom for the team's car development processes would be something all F1 fans want to see. As I've already said, by no means am I trying to verbally assault the FIA and point out all of their shortcomings.
So long, Bowser!
Because no matter what side of the fence you sit on, you've got to hand it to them. F1 is safer than it has ever been, which brings me to the final topic of today, being safety. Now, right off the bat, a lot of you are probably wondering what horrendous take I'll cook up here, so let me make it crystal clear that I am all for the safety-first approach. As I said earlier, I'm not saying bring back the infamous four-wheel death traps of the 1950s, but I am against bubble wrapping the whole racing experience. The perfect example of this is the constant micromanaging by the stewards, in the sense that it discourages the drivers from racing hard. Use the Austrian Grand Prix as a reference point. Rather than dishing out track limit warnings to half the grid like they do every year, such as the 43 separate warnings they sent out in 2022, why don't they just fix the root problem? In Max Verstappen's words, if the FIA wants to penalize everyone for what could be an honest mistake in many instances of track limit violations, they should simply just add a wall or put extra gravel there. Now, with the exception of some newer street circuits like Jeddah, extra runoff space is often preferred to Max's solution, mainly because it's safer. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's safer to run wide from oversteer rather than smashing into a concrete barrier. However, I'd argue that this approach to track design can lead to more exciting races because it means that the driver whom brakes last will lead at the next corner, not the driver who decides they're going to run wide like a Mario Kart shortcut and then bitch and moan on the radio saying that they don't need to give the space back.
You just forced me off.
It's now at the point where I reckon the sheer amount of micromanaging actually disservices to drivers in the sense that what we see on TV isn't actually depicting what these guys are capable of. Like, they'll lose some 3 kilos in sweat per race and be inches away from a career-ending collision half the time. They do not deserve to be told that their job is easy by the internet's favorite buy my course guru.
I can do that though. I can do that. It's not a question. I can do that. Give me the car. You start. Go. That's right. Stop it. I'll go right now. You can't beat me at this shit. Give me the car. They won't give me the car because they know I'll win.
I mean, give them credit where it's due. Allow for exhilarating battles in which they can voluntarily put more on the line so that the best driver prevails. This isn't me saying that we need to turn F1 into a bumper kart racing series, but rather the FIA should tolerate a lot more than they currently do, so that drivers are encouraged to bang wheels with their rivals, not fear being penalized for it. The only other safety component that I thought was worth mentioning was that of refueling, which was banned about 15 years ago. Now, for whatever reason, there's still a fair amount of F1 fans that would support the revival of fueling during the pit stop because in their mind it'd enhance the competition. And sure, I won't be ignorant, refueling doesn't just allow for closer racing due to lighter cars, but could also bring the pack closer together regarding the strategic side of it. However, I think bringing it back kind of defeats the purpose of banning it in the first place, because the concept in itself is an unnecessary danger when you realize that the cars can travel the full race distance without having to refuel. That's all I got for this section though. I'm gonna wrap this up now. So as I said before, it's not like the FIA's primary goal is to absolutely ruin the sport. Because some of their decisions in the 21st century, such as the ban on fueling and the introduction of the halo, have been genuine landmarks in turning F1 into a safer sport. I just think it's important to remember part of the reason we all watch the sport is for that exact reason. It is dangerous to be an F1 driver, which is what I'd argue makes each race weekend exciting, because there's so much uncertainty up in the air. Therefore, I reckon that if F1 wants to retain their current global fan base and expand to new places like the land of the free, they really need to lock in on the things I yapped about in this video. The bottom line is, people won't be tuning into Sunday's race if all the interviews feel scripted or if the rulebook determines the outcome. The fixes are also quite simple. Shrink the cars, let the guys race, and allow for them to express their opinions if they're fed up with something. Simple as that. Plus, it's not like F1 is unwatchable or anything at the moment. These suggestions are purely to ensure that a decade from now, the next generation spends their weekends watching the sport we all know and love instead of doom scrolling and donating to iShowSpeed's livestream. But that's that. If I still haven't convinced you that F1 needs fire, feel free to drive up my engagement by leaving some hurtful comments down below, like that Abraham Lincoln quote, "Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger" type shit. Anyways, if you enjoyed, hugs and kisses if you liked the video and subscribe, because it goes a long way. Bonus points if you check out the Discord server in the description. There's nearly 300 of you in there. Also, just a quick one, sorry about the 2 to 3 weeks between videos. I've been exiled to the academic trenches for ages, but I'm free again, so you can expect weekly videos. I got faith that we can hit 100,000 subscribers before New Year's as well. So if this video gets 20,000 likes before then, I'll do a giveaway of some Lance Stroll signed memorabilia so that you can get your own piece of F1 history. Pinky promise. Okay, thanks for watching.
Something is wrong with Formula One. Dangerous driving is what the fans want. And meanwhile, there's Lewis Hamilton, I'll just wait for a pit stop. All of you, fuck off. Let's turn it into a proper sport again and not some health and safety exercise.